Hey guys, welcome back to ADBC History. My name is Dan, I'm a researcher in ancient history and archaeology, and today is a very special episode because it's my birthday! Woo! So, we're going to look into how birthdays were celebrated in the classical world. First up, here's how the ancient Greeks celebrated birthdays in the archaic and classical periods. They didn't. Okay, that was easy. On to ancient Rome, where things were much more interesting. Birthdays in ancient Rome weren't just a celebration between friends and family, but also a complex web of ritual and cultic practices that affirmed a Roman sense of identity. But before we get into that, I want everyone watching this video to wish me happy birthday by clicking the subscribe button. Thanks so much for making my birthday as happy as it possibly could be, and now that you've all subscribed, let's get on with the video. The Romans called a birthday a dies natalis, or day of birth. 3 different kinds of birthdays were celebrated in ancient Rome. They celebrated the birthdays of individuals, just like we do in the modern world today, and they also celebrated the birthdays of temples and cities, or the anniversaries of their foundation. To the Roman mind, this was essentially the same thing. And, from the time of the first Roman emperor onwards, the Romans also began to celebrate the birthdays of past and present emperors and of other members of the imperial family. Birthdays in ancient Roman culture were intensely religious events, and very specific rituals had to be performed. Every Roman person had their own personal god, just for them, which would guide them and protect them throughout their lives. If you were a man, this was called your genius, and if you were a woman, this was called your eunuch. But we have to be careful with the word god here, because, like many gods in Roman religion, the genii and unii weren't gods in the way that we understand them today. They didn't have a defined shape or a physical presence, and they didn't talk or move around or do things. They were more of a sacred concept, the deification of the idea of the self. The religious rituals which were the main focus of a Roman's birthday were centered on praying to this genius or eunuch and asking them to protect and guide you in the year ahead. In return, you would make sacrifices to please your guardian spirit, such as offering a sweet honey cake, burning incense and fragrant herbs on a fire on an altar, or pouring out a cup of wine onto the ground. This last thing is called pouring out a libation, and it was a very common feature in both Greek and Roman religion. You would do all this while dressed in a pure white robe. And most importantly, while praying to your genius or eunuch, you would give vota, or formal promises, that you would perform the same rituals and sacrifices again in a year's time. So in a sense, these birthday rituals were renewing the protection that the genius or eunuch gave you, and one can imagine that if you failed to perform these rituals, then very bad luck would befall you indeed. The evidence for all this comes from Roman poets, such as Ovid, who makes several mentions of birthday rituals. In the first, addressing his own genius, he says, "You await, I suppose, your honours in their typical form. A white robe hanging from my shoulders, a smoking altar garlanded with flowers, grains of incense snapping in the holy fire, and myself offering the cakes that mark my birthday and framing kindly requests with pious lips." Later, when celebrating his wife's birthday, he mentions the pouring of the libation. "Let there be made a green altar of grassy turf, the warm hearth veiled with a braided garland. Give me incense, boy," he says, presumably talking to one of his slaves, "that produces rich flame, and wine that hisses when poured in the pious fire." These rituals were not solitary affairs, however, and it was typical for a Roman to invite all of their friends and family to join them in the celebration and make prayers and sacrifices to their guardian spirit. So all of your family and friends would join you in wishing you good luck for the coming year and beseeching your guardian spirit to watch over you. If you were particularly wealthy, you could even sacrifice an animal to your genius or eunuch, such as a lamb. The meat from the animal would have then probably been shared at a banquet after the rituals were completed, and gifts would have then been exchanged. A writing tablet was found at a famous Roman fort called Vindolanda, along Hadrian's Wall in what is today the United Kingdom, which contains a birthday invitation. In this message, a woman named Claudia Severa, who was the wife of a Roman military officer stationed at the fort, invited the wife of another officer to attend her birthday rituals. They were presumably good friends, and so this tablet gives us a fascinating insight into the social lives of women in the heavily militarized frontier zones of the Roman Empire. In the work of another Roman poet named Tibullus, we find a rather amusing birthday prayer by a woman called Sulpicia for her boyfriend Corinthus, who begs that the Genius watch over Corinthus, unless he cheats on her. She says, "Good Genius, take the incense willingly and willingly grant his prayers, so long as he burns when he thinks of me. But if by any chance he now sighs over another love, then, Holy One, I pray that you will desert his faithless altar." Elsewhere in Tibullus' poems, we hear about further rituals. May his Genius be at hand to witness his own honours. May delicate floral crowns grace his holy hair. May his temples be wet with pure nard, which is a kind of plant oil. May he take his fill of honey cakes and be drunk with unwatered wine. Sounds like my idea of a great weekend. So, finally, as I said above, it was common to join your friends and family in the religious rituals performed to celebrate their birthday. What's interesting is that the Romans would do this whether they were actually physically with their friends or family or not. Augustus, the first Roman emperor, once wrote to his grandson Gaius and said the following: "Especially on such days as today do my eyes seek for my Gaius, but wherever you were today, I hope that you celebrated my 64th birthday in good spirits and in good health." So Augustus has wished his grandson a happy birthday, but for his own birthday. Confusing, but that's how the Romans did it. Okay, that's all we have time for today, especially because I'm off to celebrate my own birthday by worshipping Dionysus and Bacchus with a great deal of wine, food, and good times with friend and family. So wherever you are, make sure you say a prayer to my Genius and, rather than pouring out a cup of wine in my honour, offer a sacrifice by hitting the subscribe button. As always, I'm your host Dan, and thanks for watching this episode of ADBC History.